All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome in. So apparently Robert Saleh hopped on the Rich Eisen Show to talk some Aaron Rodgers, the latest on what's going on with Rodgers at Jets, voluntary OTAs. I haven't watched it yet, so I'm literally right before I click play, I'm like, you know what? Let me just flip on the camera and do a quick little reaction to it, and we can break it all down. So let's hop into it.
So much conversation about the quarterback, obviously, coach, and whether he's going to be there or not. What is your sense of Rodgers' participation of the spring this year for the Jets? What's he told you?
Well, he's here.
Okay.
And I know he's got a couple things planned that he had planned prior to ever being traded. So, just to be respectful to all our guys with regards to prior obligations and family stuff. So he's got some things going on, but he's here. He's present, and when I say present, I mean he's fully engaged, and it's really cool just to watch him operate from play to play in his communication and the way he works from position group to position group in terms of explaining things. Like I said, he already knows the system, and so now it's kind of trying to help everyone get on the same page, not only with him but with the coordinator, the O-line, and it's been fun. It's been really a cool thing because we still have a young roster, but this offseason we've been able to add a lot of veterans, so that little mixture is a pretty good combination.
Well, I mean,
So let me quickly pause it here. This whole thing, this whole Aaron Rodgers, New York Jets thing reminds me so much of Tom Brady going from New England to Tampa Bay. It's not the same exact situation. Obviously, Brady came in with a ton of championships, and Bruce Arians was way more experienced than Robert Saleh was. But two teams that really needed a veteran leader, somebody that could actually show the organization how you get stuff done at the quarterback position. I mean, Brady, I lived down here in Tampa. When Brady came in, not only did he just get the players' attention, right? Just like kind of how Rodgers is doing with the Jets, where it's like people. I was watching a couple interviews the other day. People are saying like, they're starstruck at practice or at voluntary OTs watching Rodgers just throw the football. Saleh just said it himself. Like, it's really interesting to see how a guy of Rodgers' caliber works with different positional groups. Brady was the same way. He comes in and the players are just like, dude, this is Tom Brady throwing us the football, the best quarterback of all time. This is insane. He's now a member of the Buccaneers. But it wasn't just the players. It was the coaches. It was management. It was ownership. It was the city. Again, just being down here in Tampa, like everybody worships Tom Brady. You go outside and you see like 3 red number 12s. Like it's absolutely nuts. So Rodgers has an opportunity to do that with the New York Jets. And I just remember, so my first year living over here on the West Coast was Brady's first year. So I was here for a couple months, and then the acquisition of Brady, comes in, and it's just like, man, everything completely changed. Like the city was just electric. So cool to kind of compare veteran quarterbacks and the parallels here.
the adding of veterans on the roster, was that from the vaunted list or not? Coach.
You know what?
The list? What do you got for me on the list?
No, it's okay. Part of it's Hackett too.
Sure.
Whenever you bring in new coaches, and I made mention of it the other day, and I feel like sometimes we try to demonize the quarterback when in actuality it's very common. You've got a new coordinator. He worked with Lazard. He worked with Billy Turner. He took Billy Turner with him to Denver. So. He's got guys that he's comfortable with that he wants to continue working with, and the quarterback has some thoughts too. And I don't know. I mean, I think it'd be kind of silly if your Hall of Fame quarterback has a comfort level with somebody and you don't answer that bell. I think it's counterproductive to what you're trying to get done. And if we work, there's an old saying: if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And that's in communication. If we're truly going to preach communication and being on the same page, and we're going to listen to everything.
Well, I just want you to know, and I'm sure you guess this. I don't care. You get whoever you want that makes sense.
So I have to be honest. I don't know why the whole wish list thing keeps coming up. I still see it all over social media. Saleh addressed it the other day. Obviously, they're talking about it here. To me, it's not that big of a deal. Whether Rodgers came in with a literal piece of paper and with names written down, or he told the Jets coaches, hey, I've worked with some of these guys. They know how I play. I know how they play. We might need these guys. If we're making the Super Bowl push, we might, these guys have been the dudes that I've been relying on throughout my career. And it just so happens that they know the offensive coordinator. He knows them, and they fit the system. So I think whether Rodgers, literally wrote down the names or whatever the case may be, I think the big discrepancy here is optically speaking, right? Because I think there's really two different scenarios that played out. One, we just talked about it. Rodgers approaches the table and says, "Hey, I have my list of guys who I really like. They would like to play with me. They're my dudes, right? I've known them for a long time." And again, we just talked about it. We can look at the checklist of why it makes sense. We can connect all the dots. Or the other side, Rodgers approaches the table and says, "Hey, you know what? If you guys don't get my list of players, if you guys don't have, if you don't want these to try to go out and acquire these players, I'm not interested. So if you want me, you have to bring in my players too, my regime." And optically speaking, if that was the case, Aaron Rodgers just has the Jets wrapped around his finger. An entire organization, front office, Joe Douglas, this is Rodgers is the new GM. Either way, though, the Jets are still winding up with the same players. So I think that's the whole optic question mark. I don't think the Jets want it to look like to the public that Rodgers is doing Joe Douglas's job, saying, "I want him, I don't want him, let's go after him, draft him, sign him." I just don't think they want that perception out there. I'm not saying that that's the case. I'm just saying that if it was the case, they probably wouldn't want that out. But to be honest with you, just being 100% realistic, objective here, I think it just makes all the sense in the world. We saw this with Brady, right? We just talked about Brady. He wanted Gronk. He wanted AB. Think about all the veterans that they brought in. Leonard Fournette, Le'Veon Bell, Richard Sherman at corner. It was just random Ndamukong Suh at D-line, right? Just random signings that just help the team. "Hey, Tom, you like this guy? Have you worked with him? Do you think you can make it work with him?" Yeah. All right, cool. Let's bring him in. And these guys are taking cheap contracts to just be a part of be part of a great culture, try to go win a Super Bowl. I don't really think it's all that different here. So wish list, not a big deal, literally at all, in my opinion. Let's move on.
Honestly, I do not care one whit, because you've got to do what you want to do and what you need to do, and if it makes Rodgers happy and it actually fits your system and your offensive coordinator, then go for it. But did you? I mean, again, was it ever written down on a piece of paper, or did you ever have a conversation like, "Hey, who are you interested in?" Joe Douglas ever tell you they had that conversation at all, Coach?
No, I think in all honesty, nothing's ever been written down. It's just come in, we're watching tape, and suggestions are made, and some of the things that he suggested had already been brought up from Hackett. He'd already, before all the trade talks were even talked about, when we were doing free agency, when Hackett first got hired, he brought up guys that he would love to bring in to help accelerate the installation of the system, and so there was a lot of overlap. It was very easy to make these decisions, and some guys we haven't been able to bring in, and some guys we have, and it's been really good, transparent communication between coaching staff, front office, players, and I think because of it, we've been able to have a very productive offseason.
And in terms of communication, while the Rodgers conversation was being had between the general managers of both the Packers and the Jets, my friend and colleague from Sports Illustrated, Albert Breer, wrote in his column that you and Matt LaFleur, who go way back, right? Best men at weddings and whatnot.
Real quick before we jump into LaFleur here, I had a friend hit me up yesterday. We were actually talking about the same situation, the wish list thing. He was just asking my thoughts on it. He's a Bills fan, and I kind of, just said what I pretty much just said before. And he was like, "Let me ask you this. If Aaron Rodgers retired, no drama, no McAfee show, no rumors, the day after the season he retired, or there wasn't any rumors at all he was going to stick with Green Bay, would the Jets go out and sign Allen Lazard to a 4-year contract? Would Randall Cobb be brought in? Would Nathaniel Hackett even be the OC hire?" So I didn't look at it. I never looked at it from that angle. And it kind of got me thinking, like, you know what, if whoever it was, if the Jets were looking in the draft for somebody else, if they brought in whoever it was, Ryan Tannehill, would the Jets offseason moves look the way they have been these past couple of weeks? So anyway, just an interesting little angle. I figured I'd bring it up.
You guys agreed to just not talk about this situation while it was happening? Is that a true story?
Yeah,
Coach?
Absolutely. I have such high regard for Matt and his family, and it's pointless. We just made the decision to let Joe and Goody do their thing, and we just coach the football teams, and I lean on him, and he leans on me once in a while. We have such good, transparent dialogue with regards to head coaching and thoughts and things. It just wasn't worth allowing this transaction to kind of get in the way of that, if you will. And so it was just an agreement that we made, and that was it.
So was that like at the coaches meeting, in a text, on a phone, just like, hey,
let's just... That was way before.
Okay.
It was just, we were FaceTime. We FaceTime each other all the time. And
okay.
We're talking. I was like, and both of us, it was really like in a very organic way. Just let's agree not to talk about this and let the GMs do that.
Yeah, smart move.
Okay. So it was like Fight Club. You said like Rodgers became like Fight Club. You don't talk about it. Basically what it was like. Okay.
Pretty much.
Well, and again, you've been around Rodgers, trying to stop him for many years in big, huge games. What have you learned, Coach Saleh, about Rodgers now that you've been around him as much as you have, and now that he is your guy? What have you learned so far about Aaron Rodgers that you might not know?
One of the biggest things that we learned was actually 2 years ago when we went down to Green Bay and scrimmaged against them in practice, and just to watch how he practices and how vocal he is. And his demand for perfection. And so Ken already knew that, but to have him here and just that veteran presence, because, in my career, Matt Schaub was a fantastic quarterback at Houston. We go to Seattle. Russell was still young, so I was there for the first couple of years of his career. We go to Jacksonville, and Blake Bortles is early in his career. We go to San Francisco, and Jimmy, technically he was early in his career, even though he was a little bit more vocal because of what he learned from Tom. But he was so, as a starter, just there for 2 years, and he had an injury in there. And then this year, and then we come here, and Zach is early in his career. So to have a veteran quarterback kind of grab the reins and the communication and the level at which he does it, and it is a pretty cool thing, because it's a new experience for me too, just being transparent with regards to the experience of a quarterback, the experience of that type of a quarterback, to be in the same building. And so he's been fantastic. Now again, it's the off season, so everyone's happy. There's no adversity, and so there's a lot of patting on the back, but right now everything's been great.
Yeah, and I'm sure you saw him. He's taken in Ranger games, Knick games, and Sauce is there, Lazard's there, Breece Hall's there. I mean, Jessica Alba's there. I mean, this is.
So I really, really, really like Saleh's answer there right at the end, where he talked about there's no adversity. Everybody's cool. Everybody's patting each other on the back. When we get into the regular season and there is that devastating loss, when there is that, critical turnover or that horrible play call or whatever the case may be, how are the Jets going to bounce back? How are the Jets going to respond? I think they're going to handle it really, really well, because they're going to be prepared. And Saleh talked about it. I mean, he could have just brushed over that. That's something that I, think might not even have came up in conversation if it wasn't on Saleh's mind. So, I love how optimistic and everything is projected to be for this upcoming season, but I like how Saleh's saying, hey, not so fast. We there's no adversity. We still have to go out there and actually execute and win games. So, really, really like the answers here from Saleh. But again, the whole wish list thing, I think it's completely being blown out of proportion here. I think at the end of the day, it's just Rodgers wanting players that he feels good about that just so happen to fit the system and have worked with the OC before in the past. So anyway, let me know your thoughts. The video will be linked down below in the description box. So thanks so much for watching. I appreciate it. And as always, go Jets.